Welcome to the Humanity Mosaic Podcast, exploring authenticity and connection with Dr. E. Thank you for joining us today as we explore issues that affect our relationships in today's world. And now welcome to today's episode with Dr. E.
Hi, and welcome to the Humanity Mosaic Podcast. I'm so happy that you could join us today. I have a wonderful guest that I'm interviewing today, and we're just going to be catching up. We're friends and longtime Enneagram colleagues. Today with us, we have Rosemary Hurwitz. And Rosemary is an Enneagram author, coach, presenter, and committed to helping others live with greater self-awareness. She is a wellness and purpose specialist and an accredited professional member of the IEA, International Enneagram Association, just in case you don't know what the IEA is. She has been teaching and coaching in the field since 2002. And I have to tell you, her Amazon best-selling book, Who You Are Meant to Be, The Enneagram Effect, and her chapter contributions to 12 inspirational anthologies reflect her passion for emotional wellness. I don't want to keep you waiting any longer. I just want to say welcome, Rosemary. So happy you could be with us today.
Hi, Deborah. Thank you so much. So great to be with you today.
I'm so excited about this, Rosemary. I've been looking forward to, well, for one thing, just us getting together to catch up. And I'm very excited about your book, and I think our listeners are going to be as well. So thank you for gracing us today with your presence.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Okay. Well, I want to just kind of jump right in because you are a very interesting Enneagram practitioner to me. I know that you're a coach and you're an intuitive, you're an author, you've done a lot of things, but something that we share in common is long-term marriage to our husbands, which there's just a lot of parallels there. And what I don't know about you is really what first drew you to the Enneagram. I don't know the genesis of your relationship with the Enneagram, and how did that journey lead you to writing the book?
Well, let's see. I think I had heard of the Enneagram, a little bit here and there, but I was in a small group with church for 2 years. This one lady said to me, "You will love this, Rosemary. It's perfect for a busy mom. It meets every Wednesday night for 3 hours for 2 years, but you don't have to meet in December or summertime." And I thought, oh, that sounds wonderful. My husband and I, Dale, and I had been doing discovery weekends for the church for I don't know how many years at that point, but we ended up doing them for about 26 years. And those were discovery retreat weekends, which were patterned after Marriage Encounter. And we came to that because we did one of our own. It was like the marriage preparation that you take if you're raised Catholic, and they ask you, to do that. And I did it, and my husband's Jewish, but he did it with me, and we got a lot out of it. And so we ended up becoming facilitators after having a certain amount of training, and you had to be married a year before you could. So that was the foundation, I think, for my wanting to work in a deeper way with people, because I had been in human resources and corporate recruiting, and I liked the career coaching part of that the best. So now I'm in this leading small groups class for 2 years. At the end of this class, the professors from the Institute of Pastoral Studies at Loyola University walk in and they say, "Oh, you've received X amount of credits towards a Master of Arts in Pastoral Studies." And I'm about ready to have our fourth baby. And I say to myself, well, that's really nice. I'm never going to do that. But okay. So fast forward 5 years, or 3 or 4 years, actually, because now Caitlin is born and in preschool. And I say, oh, they gave us a 5-year window on that class. On that offer at Loyola. I really want to do that. I just had this intuitive nudge that said, you can do it. And at this point, financially, we could, because I had done my job, one day Dale said to me, well, if you want me to make more money, find me a better job. And I was in corporate recruiting, as I said. So anyway, he got a great job. I was able to go back to Loyola and get this Master of Arts in Pastoral Studies. In that program, Jerry Wagner, who is obviously a founding father of the IEA, he taught and certified people to do the Enneagram and coach with it. And I came home and I was on fire and I said, oh my gosh, I have to work with this. And Dale looked up at me and said, what are you going to do with that? And I said, well, thanks for all the support. I don't know. I'm going to listen to this little voice inside that says, take it wherever anyone will have you. And that's what I've done for 22 years. I've taken it from living rooms, women's groups and living rooms, to mom and pop companies, to corporations, but I mainly landed in the holistic environment in Chicago. I just found my home there, and there I've been for 22 years. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Good. It's a good story. I'd advise you to stick to it. Rosemary,
it's been powerful. I mean, it's been a humble career, but very powerful and very consistent. And my passion only grows as I get older. And I say, I'm going to do it until I don't have any faculties to do it with, until I pass on to the next, because I feel like we just get better as we get older. We'll be sages and we get better and deeper and like a good wine.
Rosemary, is there a particular moment or a particular shift that you've experienced as a result of studying the Enneagram and living the Enneagram? When, I know that for me, for my husband, for many people that I've spoken to, there is something that stands out where you recognize that having the Enneagram in your life changes things. And many of the changes are gradual and subtle, and you just kind of don't pay them much attention. You look back and you realize there's a difference between how you were 10 years ago and how you are now. But was there a tangible shift, something that stood out in your journey with the Enneagram where you realized, wow, this has really changed me in an incredible way? Do you remember anything like that happening with you in your journey?
Well, I can say that I went into my class with Jerry that day. I remember turning my page. I had done a lot of therapy, so I had, Jerry's assessment shows if you're resourceful in each of the 9 categories or you're not. So I thought, I'm going to be I'm a mom. I'm a mom of 4. I don't know. People say I'm a good person. I'll probably be the good type or the loving, but I turned it over and I was the joyful adventurer, just to start, with the foundation here, and with an 8 wing. And I was like, oh, this is me. This is me. This is me. This is what I do. Yes, this is what I do. Yes, yes, yes. What we all go through or similar experiences. How does this know my inner map of reality, and all that good stuff. And so I came home, as I said, on fire with it, knowing it came from a deep place inside of me. I had had a clinical depression as an 18-year-old college student in a nursing program that I didn't feel I belonged in. And I felt like a failure. I wanted to quit though, but in any event, I had a very intense clinical depression, hospital. I wanted to go. Breakdown, breakthrough, though, so powerful. So had somebody whispered to me when I was going through all that, this is going to be the foundation, or so pivotal. This is going to be, this experience that you're going through is going to be pivotal, in what you do later on in your life. Just know that, if angels had come around me, they probably did, but I wasn't able to hear it then or whatever. But so I had this calling to it, number one. So then, to answer your question, the shift would have come as I started to practice what I call the wellness map, which is the points of integration and disintegration. But I like to call it a wellness map because it shows you when you center, when you choose safety and security and centering what you look like, at what you call the high vibe, and what you look like conversely when you're disconnected and stressed, and you let tension rise, and what you look like very specifically. I think it's like an emotional MRI. It shows people very specifically what they look like. Yeah. So when I knew that and had those big ahas that we have around that, then I could practice it, and I could say, that high five, that humility, that beautiful big picture stuff that shows me I only get glimpses of the big picture, but they're mine. And, that empowerment, that all that wonderful stuff, 5-8, that floods into me when I'm centered. I wanted that. And I knew that stuff. I knew it. And I wanted more of it. So that number one was the shift. And then knowing that I got very critical, and knowing that I got very picky, low side of one stuff, overly high expectations running of myself. Oh my God, that was a theme in therapy for me all the time. Mm-hmm. So, I didn't want that. I call the point of integration my heaven on earth, and the point of disintegration sort of a hell on earth, because I didn't want that. But of course, I'm going to have both of them because I'm human. And I just worked at that. I worked at slowing down the train. My mantra for the 7 is like what we say to a dog: stay.
Yeah, exactly.
Stay, just stay. Mm-hmm. And then when I stay and I center and I breathe and I'm doing a lot of sound healing right now. And that's been very powerful for me, because I think I'm clear cognizant. I'm strong knowing, but I'm also, my ear is good. So mm-hmm. I love sound healing music, and it's been very helpful to me to, to make those shifts. That's I continue. Obviously, we're going to make the shifts till the day we die, right?
Right. That's exactly right. I'm curious. I heard you use the language of point of integration and point of disintegration, which we're kind of moving away from that language in the Enneagram community. Do you still use that?
I don't as much, and I purposely don't use it at all in my book. I just say it to clarify that I use the term the wellness map, because to me, it shows me what I feel like when I'm well, when I center, when I choose security and centering. That's wellness to me. That is states of ease to me. And when I am disconnected and, choose not to center, or I find myself in tension and stress that leads me not to center, I then, I am in states of unease. I don't want to say dis-ease, because I'm not a doctor, but unease, certainly. And I'm not feeling well. So I like the wellness map. That's my little term for the arrows.
Lovely. Let's talk a little bit about your book. The title, just the title, who you are meant to be, is fascinating. And in the title itself, it speaks to purpose. And purpose, we know, is one of the most important things that we can embrace in our human lifetime, because that's what gives our life force reason for being, reason for doing. Where did you get the inspiration to write who you were created to be, who you were meant to be? Where did that come from?
Well, I don't just see the Enneagram as a psychological wellness tool. I see it as a spiritual connection tool. And I've taught, as I said, for over 20 years, 22 years, and I have had atheists and agnostics in my classes, and I've had faith traditions of all different kinds. And if they are atheist or agnostic and we don't use God language, then we just use love language, the love, word. And so to me, this paradigm is more about, although it's very important, obviously, to be present, it is more than just well, it's all the little presents, right, that add up to who I'm going to be meant to be. But it's who I am meant to be is a call to my higher self. It's a call. That's really what it is. It's just a call to my higher self that has been calling us since we looked up into our mother's or caregiver's eyes, and forgot ourselves for just a teeny tiny second, or because babies get to remember themselves a lot. But, as we forget ourselves, I love that line in The Lion King, remember who you are, because we really do forget. And so that's sort of my way of saying, remember who you are meant to be. Remember who you are meant to be. Remember who you came here to be. And your essence, your personality and your essence is a huge part of who you came here to be. You must have chosen it for some reason, or it's the package somehow.
It's
right?
such a lovely thing to sit with that. And I hope that our listeners will do exactly that they will sit with that. And as I think about how the Enneagram guides us back to that inner truth when we really do the work. But of course, you have to do the work, so just reading the book and putting it down isn't going to do much good. But as I read your book, one of the questions that rose for me when people are trying to be guided back to their inner truth, and some of them have, I would say it's a misunderstanding about their type, because there's a lot of time spent using their type as an excuse for bad behavior. And I just wonder, when you're working with individuals, how do you sort of gently move them past the misunderstanding of their type? How do you get in there and kind of help them get more grounded and centered and have a deeper understanding of the Enneagram?
Well, I really like being a 7. This is a big surprise. I like the positive. But I like that. I liked it before I knew anything about the Enneagram. I'll like it way after I know more about the Enneagram. I think it's okay and good to be positive in life. And so when I work with people, maybe it's that old saying, you get more from honey than you get from vinegar, honey than vinegar. I don't know, but there's something about my approach that is disarming and I think relaxes people. I've been told that anyway, and that I want them to really understand the gifts that they bring to the table. I want them to get that first. And then once they get that first, I want them to get that we're all in it together, that it doesn't matter how much I know. I will teach you all this stuff, and I will share many, many wonderful wisdoms, and I will go, just like Peter denied Jesus, I will get critical, and I will say something to my husband that I maybe later regret and have to go apologize for, or whatever. We are all in it together. It's not that I want them to be looking at themselves through rose-colored glasses. On the contrary, I want them to see the truth, because the truth is what sets us free, not rose-colored glasses. They never set us free. Also, I don't like being really negative about, I don't like, some of the early Enneagram stuff that was kind of a little heavier handed. You know what I mean?
I do.
And I think that people are already a little anxious. I remember raising my hand in Jerry's certification program in the summer of 2001. And I said to him, with anxiety in my heart, I asked, how, if our personalities are formed by the time we're about 4, how do we really change ourselves how do we get to the higher end of who we're called to be? I think I asked that question 20 years ago before I wrote the book. And he laughed because he's a 5 and he felt this tension in the room and got a little tense himself and made a funny. And he said, oh, we do it about a minute a month. And something was born within me in that moment, the one in me, I don't know, but something was born in me. And I said, inside, no. We have to do it more than a minute a month. No, it can't be a minute a month. It has to be a minute in a day, a minute an hour. We have to raise our consciousness and be fully aware of who we are here to be. I just got very inside. I didn't say this. I was too shy to say it, but internally I was feeling it like a burning fire.
It's interesting because if you think about where we are in the world,
yes,
right now, a minute a month, a minute a year, that's a little scary.
Yeah.
Because in order for us to come out of this, what feels like survival consciousness to a higher level, we really all need to be doing the work. And so many people, I think, would do the work if they knew what it was. Is there a particular section of your book that you feel like really highlights how people can sort of do the work? Is there a methodology that you employ, or are there recommendations that you have that really will help people to do that work more than a minute a month?
Right. I remember asking Helen Palmer, such a good question, Deb. I remember asking Helen when I was new at it and I was down at Loyola and we had lots of continuing ed after I got the, master's and my certification and all that. And I said, the way I get to it is by understanding my blind spot. We didn't call it a blind spot in those days. We called it the area of avoidance, right? So I said, I go in through my area of avoidance and I say, when I'm in a trouble spot, I ask myself, what don't I like about this limit or what feels limiting and painful to me right now? She said, that's great. That's a great way to do your work. And I said, another way that I do it is I ask myself, how is the gluttony how is the passion running me all around town with a ring in my nose instead of me managing it? How am I being slave to that passion instead of managing it? And she said, that's another great way. She said, I was probably being overly high expectations, overly critical, coming to this master teacher, asking her a question. And she said, no, those are two wonderful ways. So those are two ways that I work. And then I also like to focus on the wellness map. When I'm disconnected, I ask myself, what is this low vibration of 1 doing to you right now? Why are you getting so critical? Why are you getting so overly high expectations? Why are you scattering out and spinning your wheels and obsessing about something? So that's why I call the Enneagram an emotional MRI when you work with a good guide, because you get very specific about what it is that you do to yourself to get in your own way. And that's what I call the work. So I remember saying to my dad way back when, my dad said, Rosemary, he was a professor at Marquette University, and he opened up the College of Speech, and was awarded Professor Emeritus. He was quite a wonderful man and a character. But he said, we grow in spite of ourselves. And I said, yeah, Dad, but can you imagine what it looks like when you're consciously doing the work? And he said, bring that test up for me, will you? He was like 89 and he took the Enneagram. Oh, and he said, if I had known a lot of this, I would have been different. And I said, well, you know it now. So right. I love you for doing it.
Well, and that's one of the things that, all of us who teach and practice the Enneagram, what we know is that once you know, you can't not know. So once you have landed accurately at the correct point on the Enneagram that is really yours, you can continue to just wander through life and ignore it, or you can begin to do the work, which is it's a long journey. But some of the language that you're using, I just love it. I mean, emotional MRI, I'm definitely borrowing that.
All
That
right.
is
Well, just
wonderful.
I feel sort of lost in our big community, so I'd love a little shout out on that one. Jerry Wagner, I probably stole a million things from him, but he took. I said I love the word resourceful, Jerry, because you know what? How I see it as when we're resourceful, we are reconnecting to our source. That's what I don't know if lots of great minds think alike. Maybe you had that thought too, but I came up with that, and he goes, I'm going to use that. And he's the one who taught me resourcefulness. So I got a kick out of that.
And I kind of think we need to go back to Helen's area of avoidance instead of blind spot, because area of avoidance in so many ways really does capture it, I think, more just in a much more tangible way. You know, blind spot, what does that really mean? But area of avoidance, I think.
Yeah, people don't always know what that means either, though. So you got to flesh it out a little, right?
Yeah,
but it's the area we avoid. It's the area we avoid or we don't know about. It's the shadow, it's, and I think it's really helpful to know that. And that the passion, the area of avoidance, the wellness map, and then certainly that the centers, to know that I'm a head type, so it's so important for me to align to my heart and gut. So important, and I do it every time I wake up in the middle of the night. When I was listening to the news, which I'm off the news because I got too anxious with all the September, just too much. So I would do my breath work, and so that's the connecting to my body, right? My body type. When I do my breath work and I do that beautiful breathing of Dr. Andrew Weil I go in 4, hold 7, and then breathe out 8. And I do it about at least 5 times. And then I'll fall back asleep because my brain goes like this,
Right, correct.
And so I know also to check in with my heart to say, if I'm second guessing or, something, I have an 8 wing, but I have a 6 wing too. So I'm capable of second guessing, or maybe that's the overly high expectation thing. I know how to check in with my heart and say, do you really feel that way? No. So the undernourished areas override the overactive brain, and I align, and I know how to do lots of good tricks. So I try to pass those on to people I work with. I think that was your question.
Yes. And the follow-up question to that is, have you worked with individuals who are really resistant to any form of self-reflection? And if you have, how do you help them?
Yeah, that's a good one. I remember my niece saying, well, I don't like the Enneagram. It backs. She was probably all of 25, but she said, I took it in high school and it kind of boxes you in. I really like this woman, my niece, and I didn't really say anything about it at that. I said, well, my experience is that it's the antithesis of boxing you in. It shows you your box. It shows you the box, your ego. It shows you what you live with every day so that you can better peel those walls of the box down and get more free. What I would have said to her today is, the higher self is expansive. Yes. It is not so you're in your higher self or on the road to your higher self or in the aura of your higher self or whatever language you want to use when you are feeling more expansive. When you are constricted, generally, I'm not saying healthy limits, I'm saying tense constriction. That's not a loving parent, a loving power in you. That's something else. but it's what creates illness. I don't want that, as much as I can not have it. I'm human and I'll have it. It'll happen. But I want to be conscious. I like being conscious. It makes me feel good. I like it.
The expansiveness, and it needs to be, of course, in all three of our centers of intelligence. So that expansiveness of the mind, of the heart, and of the gut, the body, is what leads us. And if we have something like your wellness map as well to check in, and we do our emotional MRI, then that's sort of a lovely prescription for doing the work. But for someone who picks up your book for the first time, and it's the only Enneagram book that they've ever picked up, and they are ready to begin doing the work, what advice do you have for them?
Well, I would say, like you have your beautiful, your individual type guides.
Yes,
I would say if you don't want to read the whole book, just take the discernment quiz at the end, or take Deborah Egerton's lovely free discernment quiz. There's many of them. But, if you just want to invest a little bit to see if it's right for you, and then read all about you in chapter, whichever type you think you are. If you have a good sense of inner awareness, of sense of self, you'll more than likely, at least my experience is that I know it can be hard determining type, but I have to say the people that have had the hardest time determining their type are usually 6s, because they're second guessing other things. I don't generally have that, but see, I give Jerry's assessment, and it shows you how unique you are, whatever within the 9, it shows you the 9 aspects, as you know, and how they fall within the unique snowflake that you are. So I think that's very helpful. So I would say to people, if you can do that, do an assessment with me and do a session. If you don't want to do that, then at least start with the discernment quiz, my discernment quiz at the back of the book, and then read, and then narrow it down to, I'm sure you'll be able to narrow it down to 3. It takes you another couple days, narrow it down to 2, because I have questions in there. Ask yourself things like, when you're in a trouble spot, are you in your heart center? Do you get drama going? Do people call you a drama queen? Is that more pertinent when you're in a trouble spot? Stress? Or do you get monkey mind going? Can you not go to sleep at night sometimes because your brain doesn't shut off? Or are you more reactive? Or do you get the knee-jerk reactions, hence the word jerk, because your gut's going off? We get a billion hits in our gut all day long, but are you giving too much credibility to that gut sometimes? So find out if, your head, heart, or gut, and then you'll be able to help yourself discern your type. So once you've done that, then read the chapter. And if you don't want to read the whole chapter about yourself with core type, the 7 mainstays, your core type, your possible wing, your arrows or integration points, your wellness map, what I call the wellness map, and your center, preferred way of knowing, head, heart, or gut, read the last page, which is ways to practice balance. Mm-hmm. And if you read only one page of the book and you say, oh yeah, these are good, these are some good ways I could practice balance, then read more, because balance is something that leads us to wholeness.
I love that. Just love that. It's not my usual experience of interviewing someone about their book and they be able to give such clear direction in terms of how do you even start. So that was just lovely and extremely helpful.
But and practical. You only have to read one page.
That's the thing, it's so, one of the reasons that I wrote Enneagram Made Easy was for that reason, to make it easier for people to embrace the Enneagram and to be able to actually find a way to understand the different elements of the Enneagram and not to be so put off by it, putting it into language that people can accept.
And I love that title too. I want you to know that it's such a beautiful title. There are so many people that say that to me. If I have any comment through the years that has been, negative or whatever, it's that the Enneagram is it's too complicated. It's too cerebral. And I'll say, well, it doesn't have to be, so.
That is correct. That is correct. Well, Rosemary, my final question for you, and I really want to have you on again so that we can talk more about this, but I wanted to make sure that people know about your book and get that out there and get more people coming into the Enneagram community. Big shout out for the International Enneagram Association, of which I am still president until the end of the year.
I'm so proud of you for that. You did such a good job.
You are one of our wonderful members, and that's why I want to make sure that, I spotlight the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you.
The work that you're doing, which is wonderful, but there's your personal life. There's a marriage that has sustained itself for 45 years?
44.
44.
Same as you.
We're the same. So
and we both modeled too. We both were
yes,
modeled.
We did.
Way back in the day.
Way back in the day. Well, we could still do it now if we wanted to.
That's right. We got to think about that. They're better about that in these days, right? We're not put to paper.
But people are always asking me, what's the secret of having such a long-term marriage? And my answer is often, my secret is there too. One is separate bathrooms. That's very, very helpful. It has helped me to maintain the mystery and the mystique. Therefore, when I walk out of the bathroom, when we're getting ready to go somewhere, he can look at me and say, wow, without having to see everything that went into the creation of that.
I love that. Do you know, Dr. Bond, my first therapist said, mystery, a little mystery.
A little mystery. That's exactly right.
Very important.
My second, I think, secret formula to a long-term marriage has been the Enneagram. Because there's the years that we had before I knew the Enneagram and the years after I began studying the Enneagram, and then the years after we both were studying the Enneagram. Mm-hmm. What's been your experience of how the Enneagram has sort of influenced the substance, the nature, the energy of your marriage?
Well, I told you earlier that we had done these discovery weekends for the engaged, which were patterned after these retreat weekends, which we were facilitators for, and they were patterned after marriage encounters. So Dale and I had a lot of, we'd done some nice work. We'd also been in therapy together when the teenage years got a little rough and I needed some centering and some, so all of that helped a good marriage. Mm-hmm. But the Enneagram, when I could see what he does when he's disconnected and stress and what he does when he's safe, I don't know. It's like you take a big deep breath or something. You're just like, yes, that is it. Those are the times that I get frustrated. And that's the person I love so much, the one who, I love him any which way, but it's easier when he's centered. Let's put it that way. And he is receiving all this love in action from this peaceful type, as opposed to being unwilling to get into the ring and discipline a 17-year-old when they need to be disciplined. I got tired of being called the bad cop because I was comfortable, not always comfortable, but I was willing. Well, I was comfortable as a 7 with an 8 wing. Let's be realistic. I was comfortable challenging my kids to a good boundary Well, Dale would not always be. He would be off in the corner cheering me on, but I'm then getting labeled as the bad cop and he's the good cop. So yeah, that wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And we would go into therapy about that. And Donna would say, the therapist, she'd say, Dale, you have to move toward your kids in less trying to be a friend to them and more someone who sets a good boundary. And Rosemary needs to move away from them. So we needed each other. He needed to be a little bit more like me, and I needed to be a little bit more like him. And you know what? That's probably why we fell in love in the first place, because I love that. We say we find our other half, well, or our better half, we call it. You know, I do really believe if you have a successful relationship, that other person has what you want a little bit. I have what he wants. He told me a long time ago, you bring me up. You fire me up. And I get contained and quieter and softer because of him.
Well, you know, once again, we have parallel stories because we're both married to 9s, you know, and you and I have a line between us, 1 and 7. And I have to say, I was just restraining the laughter when you were talking about kids, because anytime I would have to bring my husband in for the discipline, even once he disciplined them, the kids were like, yeah, that was what mom made him do it. You know, he never got the label of bad guy. It was, he only did that to us because mom made him do it. Oh. And I laugh all these years later. I can remember coming home after I started my own business, and I would say to my lovely 9 spouse, you know, well, this is something that happened today, and I want you to go through this with me so that I can look at it more clearly. And he would say, nope. I'm like, what do you mean, no? He said, your brain never turns off. And if I engage you every time you want to explore something more deeply, you're going to burn yourself out. So come in, put down your briefcase, sit your butt right here on the couch next to me, and we're going to watch a really fun movie. And Rosemary, I didn't know whether to be furious or grateful.
I know.
But over the years, I've become more grateful because I recognize that what he said was true. You know, I didn't need to go through everything and find the perfect moment and the perfect detail that was going to fix everything the way that I wanted it to come out perfectly. And so his 9 energy of being the calm one, and my 1 energy of always wanting to, you know, go a little deeper so that I could get it right. And so that it would be perfect. We've been a blessing to each other, you know. And I just,
what do you think he's gotten from you? You just were clear about what he's given you, how he would relax you, make you see a movie that's funny or silly or gentle, or just taking the mood into a different, lovelier arena. So what do you think he gets from you?
From me, it's
more discipline in himself, or
you know what, he's already disciplined because he's a physician, and so it takes a lot of discipline to do that. But he was also in the military, and he's a retired colonel. So discipline is not his problem.
Okay.
But the challenge and what I bring to him is really trying to help him from going into too much 6-type anxiety. Because when there's a task ahead of him, he's very disciplined about the way that he does it. And actually, I bring to him a sort of an energy that says, handle that lightly. Don't carry it in such a heavy way. You know, really, when you look at the details carefully, there is a path here to get you to where you want to go. But if you get too much anxiety, at point one, we can kind of hold it together. If you get too much anxiety on board, then whatever task you're trying to do becomes more complicated. And so we laugh when we're talking to each other because he frequently sums up everything that I'm thinking in one or two sentences. And on the other side of it, I will frequently listen to his process about how to do something, and I will say, why don't you try it this way? And as a one, it's coming from my gut. It's like, all that other stuff is superfluous. Just try it this way. And he'll just look at me and say, that's good. So we, and the important thing for people who are listening to understand, how often we get the question, what types really belong with what type?
Oh, so many.
Yeah, no.
I always say it's not a quantitative thing, it's a qualitative thing, you do with anybody. But having said that, if you are with someone who's a lot like you, I mean, there's something nice about the compliment. I would say that, right? We have a compliment, both you and I, in our marriages. And I like that. I might have killed another 7 or 8, or I don't know. Maybe I say if I fell in love with Al Pacino, we might have killed him. So I don't know, but I like, but people ask that all the time. What do you say to that?
Well, actually, because you just gave me some new language today, I'm going to say it's all about your emotional MRI.
It is about how healthy you are.
If you're both healthy, you'll be fine. It won't matter what type you are, because you have this beautiful blueprint to your souls, and you have a way of really finding ways to connect back to each other. But that gets into a deeper.
But you remember when, I don't know, Richard Bradshaw, the author of I forget, it was something with the child. He said that we pick people who are, to answer somebody, this is another good thing to tell clients, we pick people at levels of, generally, he said, our levels of function and dysfunction, similar levels of function and dysfunction. So, it's like you want to play tennis with somebody who's a tiny bit better than you, so you get a little better. I just wanted someone who was going to be willing to be committed to emotional wellness. I really did, and spiritual connection, whatever he calls his God. I didn't need for him to have the exact same belief that I did, which is interesting to me because I went to Catholic grade school, high school, and university. So my line is, I got so sick of Catholics, I married a Jew. But I really didn't need somebody to think or believe the way but I want them to have the same values.
Right.
I want them to have the same, commitment to those values. And I got that. It's a funny story. I said to Dale when we first met, and I won't talk more about us, but I said, Dale, if the kids would come to you and say, do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God? And could you say, yes, and I believe we're all sons and daughters of God, and he was among the best. Could you say that? Because we're going to raise our kids Christian, we're believing in Jesus. I couldn't give up Jesus. So he said, I could say that and believe that. And I said, well, then we're good to go. That's all I cared about, And that was in 1979. That was way, a couple people, our parents were very respectful and accepting of the differences, but my Aunt Margie wasn't so lucky in the 40s. I mean, she was told you can't marry. She was in love with a Jewish man, and my grandma said, this is verboten, you can't do that, and she ran away to California and so sadly got hit by a car and killed. And my grandma, every time she talked about Aunt Margie, would cry. And I thought, how did it work out that that happened to her, and I get to have this, and I get to have 4 beautiful children and 4 grandchildren and this long, long love of my life, long 44 years more, 46 years together. So it's just about love. It's all just about love, and we're all in it together. And it's all I want everybody to know and wrap their arms around when they hear us today.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so on board with that. You and I, once again, another parallel, cradle Catholic, elementary, high school, college. Gene is the son of a Baptist minister. Neither of us would ever think about asking the other one to convert or change or, move in any different direction than what we were born into. But we're both open-hearted about that. And that's something that we need so much more of in this world, to be able to connect across whatever the differences may be. And, you and I have been pretty successful, knock on wood, and thank you, God, to have been able to connect with our spouses across differences in ways that have been long lasting and have not only benefited us, our children, our families, but I believe that relationships like we share give hope to others. And so I wanted to spotlight that just a little bit today. And I thank you so much for being my guest today. And I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
And just
we've just had a nice little connection, even though before we knew it. I mean, a little spark. I remember early on meeting you. Hey, I just wanted to say one quick thing, if I could, to anybody who is involved in Enneagram Collaborative Global that might watch this. We have these SME groups. They're small, subject matter expert, and mine is starting in January. So just to plant a seed, put a bee in their bonnet, and if it seems to speak to you, please, come and join me. I'm going to do the Enneagram and intuition, because I've taken many certifications in intuition, and I do angel card readings. And I know you are connected to Rebecca Campbell, who I love, and I actually have her deck right here, but I have a favorite, and it's in my other room, but it's with Catherine Skaggs. She's a shaman. And anyway, I'm going to talk about different ways because what happened, let me just say real quickly that I gave these card readings to people who were working with me on their Enneagram. And what would happen is there would be something that would get underlined that they'd be working on. They'd be doing this inner work, and this card would just blow everybody away in the small group, because they're the cards, and the reading that I gave it would be as though it just was underlining what they were working on. Yeah. So there are other things I'm going to talk about and teach, like the fast pen method, ways that you can do your inner work that doesn't always involve a lot of reading or a lot of cerebral, but more this visceral sort of knowing, And right. So that's going to start January the 2nd. It's always going to meet the second Wednesday of the month. So I'll just say Enneagram Collaborative, and people will have my information, right?
Yes, they will. They will.
So they can connect if they would like to know more.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rosemary. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. I think that just listening to Rosemary talk today, hopefully that you found some answers, some guidance, and some wisdom. See you again soon.
Thanks so much for having me. Love you.
Love you too.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Humanity Mosaic Podcast with Dr. E. For more information, please visit deborah.egerton.com and be sure to check out the AuthenticSelfCommunity.com to continue your journey.